Have you taken a hit, do you think, because you're this non-Arab, non-Muslim, black woman, but who's made Palestine quite a big part of your, I don't know, social media output for the last 6, 8, 9 months?
I mean, I lost my agents. I lost my publicist. Let's put it this way. People that I was making money for, all of a sudden didn't want to make money with me anymore.
I just wonder, Hollywood is full of liberal people, but the industry itself is not very liberal, certainly not on this issue.
I just think you're misusing the word liberal. Liberal at this point just means I'm not okay with bad things as long as they don't inconvenience me.
I'm Mehdi Hasan.
And I'm Amanda Seales.
And we are not kidding. A new podcast from Zeteo in which funny people talk about serious things, and I hope funny things as well. Today we're going to be talking about Biden, Gaza, Trump, Gaza, Biden v. Trump, and maybe Kamala Harris. Why does no one ever talk about Kamala Harris? Amanda Seales, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, great to see you as well. Look at Zeteo.
Zeteo.
Moving and grooving.
We're moving, grooving. We'll do all the hip stuff here. Hip, we are.
Yeah.
When we came up with this podcast and we came up with We're Not Kidding, I knew that you would be one of the guest co-hosts at some point very soon.
Yay.
So I'm so glad you're joining us to not kid around, as we would say on this show. There's a lot to talk about, but before we get into that, how are you doing? How's life?
Individually.
The 2024.
Like, as a person, individually, I am well. Now, outside of me, everything, I'm well enough to not be just melancholy and dejected every day as I assess what is going on around me. And I feel like that's a win.
Has that changed, do you think, in recent months? I feel like
yeah.
I feel like the 8 months of the trauma that we've all witnessed on our iPhones and on Instagram, etc.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not, we've normalized it as well, just through human nature, just through the numbness.
I mean, I got on Lexapro, so I normalized it through the Lexapro. I just couldn't manage. I mean, I was just like, I can't. I'm just too much of an empath and person who's curious to be able to continue to manage this on my own. But I think the other part of it too, like you said, I mean, I actually force myself to make sure to watch things so that doesn't happen.
Yes.
I really do. I'm like, no, and take it in.
And your voice has been such an essential voice online. And I think a lot of people, including friends and family of mine, were like, whoa, check out what Amanda's been saying post October 7th. And I didn't know till you and I met in person. We have actually met in person. We don't just do this on screens. We did make a point to meet in person when you were last in DC. Now you're in LA. I'm in DC. The next one of these shows we have to do in person. But when we met in person, that is when I discovered that you have a personal connection to Palestine. You have a family connection to Palestine.
Yeah. My stepmother is from Palestine. She's Palestinian. And my sisters and brothers through my father, they are Afro-Palestinian. And my sister was on my podcast, Small Doses, and she did an incredible episode in 2021, Side Effects of Palestine, where she talks about her grandfather's experience in the Nakba and really helped frame for a lot of my audience why Palestine is not just that thing happening over there. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are coming to realize.
Is it something, I just wonder, because I've met so many people, and I'm not saying this in a bad way or a judgy way at all, but I met a lot of people who say, I just didn't know anything about this stuff pre-October 7th, pre this current genocide. And now I'm really into it. I've got people, I was at an event over the weekend and people were asking me, what books can we read? We're trying to read history books to understand Nakba, 1948, where the American role is and all this. Have you been someone who, because of the family links, has always followed this stuff?
No, because to be honest, I really didn't hear about it from my family because my sister was essentially, like many Palestinians, trained to really keep things hush-hush. And even when we were going to do the podcast episode, she was a bit concerned about how it may affect her job and how it may affect her, environment. And then she was like, man, F that. Like, I'm going to just do what needs to be done. And, Mark Lamont Hill is a good friend of mine, and he's always been very deeply connected to Palestine, but I never thought of it as more than just like, oh, this is something that he got connected to, and so he's just into it. But I think I'm like many Americans. Our blinders have been on for so long about so many global issues in general. And I can very, humbly admit that particularly once Trump got in office, I just shut down. I really from 2016 to 2020 was just very disengaged, and the word politics felt like a bad word. And I just kind of didn't feel like I had this is going to be a very LA sentence, the bandwidth, to really grapple with what I felt was an insurmountable amount of just terror and chaos and madness. And then it was like, girl, if you don't get over yourself, you one of the smart ones. You better get into it.
Yeah, you did.
And I look at my peers who are also the smart ones who don't say nothing. And I'm like, so what's this? And for those who don't know, y'all know, I definitely have confronted them about it.
You mentioned Mark Lamont Hill, who famously got cancelled from CNN for saying "river to the sea" back when no one knew anything about rivers or seas, and now it's like now it's the phrase everyone knows because their kids are on campus saying it, and white rich folks are losing their shit over the fact their kids are saying it. But Mark was saying it at the UN years ago and got cancelled from CNN over it. You mentioned your sister and how she was worried about what would happen. And that was pre-2023. That was in 2021. That was in the previous time they were quote unquote mowing the lawn. And it's funny that you mention, the smart people who aren't speaking about it, because I did want us to talk about that today, because there is this sense that even now, we've crossed 8 months into this, even now people still cannot pluck up the courage. People with platforms, with voices, with huge followings, with kind of celebrity protection status, still can't say anything about the great moral issue of our lifetimes, about kids losing their limbs at a historically unprecedented level.
You can kind of argue in some cases, well, they've never been political, right?
Yeah.
So in some cases you're like, all right, well, they've never been about it. But in others, you're like, well, hold on now. I've seen you do entire TV shows that were all about. I'm talking about people like Trevor Noah. I'm talking about people like Hasan Minhaj. I'm talking about people who literally were in position to translate this information to people, and were trusted. And so to not hear them loudly be like, yeah, this is not okay, it's genuinely odd to me, because I just feel morally beyond my obligation as like I said, one of the smarties. I just morally don't feel, I don't want anyone, Mehdi, let me tell you something. I don't want anyone to ever confuse where I'm at on it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Trevor Noah, I haven't seen what he said. To be fair to Hasan Minhaj, who is a friend of mine, he has said stuff on social media. Maybe he hasn't said, I don't know. I don't spend that much time on people on Instagram.
But Hasan is a lovely person. I'm just saying, I don't know I didn't know that he had said something. That actually is a relief, because I really respect Hasan. But I haven't seen Trevor say anything, so maybe I missed out.
Maybe there's no analogies to be made with South Africa at all in this conflict.
Because I can't. I can't see where he would draw the lines.
There's
threads.
Nothing. None. Not even any A words that might come to mind in this context. Angelina Jolie, I have a newfound respect for her. She's been quite outspoken from the beginning, and even recently she's come out. I thought she was interesting. But you're right. The celebrities in Hollywood who took such a strong line on Trump when it came to kind of fascism at home, when it comes to Netanyahu, which is, I always, I'm not asking for famous people to come out and kind of be anti-Zionists or talk about the Nakba, or even, I just be Netanyahu, not a good guy. I have a very low bar.
Low bar.
Just say Netanyahu, not a good guy.
Apartheid, not cool. Apartheid, not cool. Crack is whack. Apartheid, not cool.
Not cool. Not cool anywhere.
Just that.
Let's just cut to this then. Do you empathize with those who say we are picking our battles because, you know what, careers are at risk here. People are being taken down. Do you remember right at the beginning, after October 7th, Maha Dakil, who's Tom Cruise's agent, big figure in the agency world, she kind of got demoted, I think almost fired, definitely demoted, just because she shared or liked a post that said the G word, said genocide. and people lost their minds at her talent agency. Right now, I think the other day, what's the name of the woman? I wrote her name down. Ashley Margolis from a Hollywood PR agency just put out a statement that got leaked saying, we're not going to do work with anyone who's anti-Israel. Not anti-Semitic, not anti-Jewish, anti-Israel. Very specific she was. In fact, if you say the word genocide, that's apparently means you can't work with that talent agency. I mean, Hollywood, I just wonder, Hollywood is full of liberal people, but the industry itself is not very liberal, certainly not on this issue.
Well, I just think you're misusing the word liberal.
That's a fair point.
They're not progressive.
Good point.
Liberal at this point just means I'm not okay with bad things as long as they don't inconvenience me. Once they inconvenience me, it's like, oh well, I mean, when you hear people say things, like, honestly, the biggest thing that really shows you about liberals is when you see folks standing up and saying, this is a genocide, whether it's in front of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Hakeem Jeffries, and then you see the people sitting next to them be like, sit down!
Oh, yes.
Come on, be quiet! That's when you're like, well, that's a liberal. Like, I bought tickets to this and you're interrupting.
Yeah, the Seinfeld one. You saw the Seinfeld one recently where they just like...
I did.
And then he made some obnoxious remark as well. Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld. What?
I mean,
I can't watch Seinfeld again. I love watching Seinfeld when it's on, and now I'm like, I can't watch it. Not that I was ever a big fan of his, because he was the weakest character in the show, let's be honest. But still, and actually Julia Louis-Dreyfus has made some very good remarks recently about all sorts of good things that I agree with her on. But didn't Kramer come out as some ragingly racist stuff years ago? Michael, whatever his name is.
I don't think he gets much more raging than the N-word. Much more raging than the N-word. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah. He was on stage at the Laugh Factory and was like, "You have a better memory than me."
I know he had said something awful. Although some watching this, Amanda, might say Seinfeld defending genocide is worse.
Listen, it's up there. I'll tell you that.
What's George Costanza up to these days? Who's he defending? Putin? No, I'm joking.
But when I met Jason Alexander, by the way, though, he was like so lovely. And he actually gave me courage at that time to do something that I was really not sure I could do, which was set up my agent situation differently than the town is used to. And I remember I met him when I was doing a game show, and I was just talking about it. And he was like, do whatever you need to do. Like, don't let yourself be ruled by this town, please. And so that's a message for everyone, right? Because the careers would only be in jeopardy if there's so much fear. If everybody would just
stick together,
get together and say what needs to get said. This is a town where talent is commodified versus where we, as the talented folks, need the managers, need the agents. Like, that's a whole business that was just created to, commodify talent. And if you really create a world or a situation where you don't need them, then the dynamic shifts. But just to bring it back to Seinfeld defended Michael Richards when that happened. And that gave me pause.
Oh, I did not know that. I did not follow that.
That gave me pause. And he had like a whole thing where he was talking about how there doesn't need to be DEI in comedy. You just need to be funny. And I wrote an article for CNN.com about that. And I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. Like, I used to carry around his book Sign Language like it was the Old Testament. Remember those little mini Old Testaments? I used to carry that around. And I know Seinfeld bits like off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So that was it. It's really his wife during BLM would be DMing me and, all the support for the blacks, baby. And now, she's bankrolling attackers at encampments.
She was accused of funding some of the counter-protesters at some of the campuses. She's denied that, I know. She said, I was funding other protests, not those protests.
I see. Okay, so it's allegedly.
It's allegedly, but, clearly they're on the side of, the wrong side of history. I think it's fair to say in this occasion, even if their TV show was on the right side of history. For me, it was always about, my favorite scene was the Moops scene with the bubble boy. That's one of my favorites.
My favorite scene, without question, is when they're at the table and he's talking about ponies. And the woman says, I had a pony. I had the pony. My sister had a pony. My brother had a pony. All of us had ponies. And then she is just so upset. She leaves, and he's like, how was I supposed to know she would have a pony? Why would you leave a country where everybody has ponies? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Look, Amanda, we should enjoy this now because we can never watch the show again. So we might as well just enjoy this with each other, very sadly.
I know.
You mentioned a couple of things I want to pick up on what you mentioned. You said, well, first of all, sticking together. I will say this. Someone I love watching in movies but don't like as a person because of the whole Scientology thing is Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise turned up to defend that agent Maha Dakil when she was being attacked in October last year. He went to give solidarity with us.
Have you ever met Tom Cruise?
Why would I have met Tom Cruise? I'm not Amanda Seales. I don't get to meet people like Tom Cruise.
He's so lovely. Like, I'm not even BSing.
Is he like creepily lovely? Because the stuff you read about the Scientology church and his role in it is not great, I'll be honest with you. But I still watch the Top Gun and Mission Impossible movies and love them.
When I interviewed him back in the day on MTV, he was so just like, he's not creepy. He's just like nice.
Did he try and convert you?
No, I think I've always been that person where whether it's like, you know, predators as a child, etc. I feel like most people look at me and they're like, not her.
That happens to me. Amanda, there used to be a Church of Scientology in London. I think it might still be there near my office when I was at the HuffPost. And you would walk down the street and they would be standing on the street to grab people. And they never stopped me. I would go every day to get a sandwich. So what's wrong with me? Because you know me, I'd love to have that debate, discussion / argument.
Exactly.
But they never asked me.
I'll do it just for the content.
Same,
I mean,
100%.
Drake asked me out one time and I said yes, not because I want to go on a date with Drake, but because I knew that this is a story that's bigger than me. This is an experience for the people.
Did you write about it?
Of course I talk about it on stage.
Okay. So far we've had Drake, Tom Cruise. We're only about 15 minutes in. I can't wait to where this goes next. You mentioned the other thing I was going to say, apart from Tom Cruise, we got distracted by Tom Cruise and how lovely Tom Cruise is you talked about the idea, well, first of all, sticking together is very important, but you also mentioned this kind of commodification of talent and agents. Have you taken a hit, do you think, because you're this non-Arab, non-Muslim, black woman, but who's made Palestine quite a big part of your, I don't know, social media output for the last 6, 8, 9 months? Has there been a cost for you, do you think? Implicitly or explicitly?
I mean, I lost my agents. I lost my publicist.
Over this specifically?
I mean... Just
correlation, just coincidence happening.
One of them, yes, very directly said it. The other, let's put it this way. People that I was making money for, all of a sudden didn't want to make money with me anymore.
Just completely
so
coincidentally.
if I have a book deal closing and you say, you know, I'm just not going to be able to work with you anymore, and you don't give me a valid reason why, then I know what this is. You're literally turning down, you want to be so distant from me that you don't even want commission off the deal. How about that?
We live in some crazy times.
Crazy times.
I've called October the 7th, I've called it many things in terms of the fallout from it, not the actual terrorist attack. But October 7th as a kind of cultural marker, as a political moment for us here in the US at least, it is a masks off moment. There have been a lot of masks have fallen over the last 8, 9 months. And
I lost friends.
Same. And I don't think we can go back to a pre-October 7th moment because we've discovered so much about people we've worked with, we've been friends with, what they're okay with, what they're not okay with, what they're willing to say and do. And it's really depressing, actually. I'll be honest with you. It's had a whole level of, because, you know, you want to be like, oh, yeah, F you. And it's like, but also, I like that person. I thought I liked you. I had a really good, I enjoyed watching Seinfeld with you. And now we can't watch Seinfeld and I can't meet you. So it has been very depressing. And you know what? And this is my lazy attempt at a segue. There's up until October 7th, not just people I know, but even politicians. A lot of politicians.
I was about to say, I was going to do the segue for you.
Please do. You do it. Take over.
You know, it's not just the friends and the celebs and the artists, it's the politicians. And then that dovetails this into the entire understanding of the US government and as of global imperialism. I mean, I can tell you wholeheartedly that I have learned more in the last 8 months than I have in the last 5 years. Literally, I have advanced. I mean, I'm like Goku, it's like, I feel like I'm becoming a Super Saiyan just by the expansion of my mind with just more information. So, I mean, it's like, so that's the catch-22, right? It's, well, not the catch-22, but it is the conundrum. It's like, on one hand, you lost all these people, but then like I gained you, right? Like there's a multitude of people that, just got shed.
The connection. No, that's a very good point. The people who've come together.
But then I got connected to so many other folks that I never would have.
And I think that happens that's happened on multiple levels. I think it's happened to quote unquote normies, people who are not in our business. It's happened on college campuses very brazenly, very clearly. But I do think for me, it's actually a little bit different, Amanda. For me, it's kind of like I've spent 25 years, at least, no more, 30 years reading about this stuff, getting angry about this stuff, following this stuff like a geek. And for the last 8-9 months, none of it's making any sense, because I look at someone like Joe Biden and I think, okay, I understand Joe Biden's politics. I've followed his career for many years. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh my God, how could he be doing this? The guy supported the Iraq war and I still voted for him in 2020 because, Donald Trump was on the ballot. And he seemed to have improved, Biden. And, people follow me around with this Guardian headline from when I was on book tour. And I was asked about Biden a year ago. And I said, he's the best president of my lifetime. Of course, compared to other presidents, there's not that much competition. But obviously since October 7th, I don't understand anything he's done or said. I don't even understand how he's helping himself. Yeah, I think if he loses the election this year, why? Why would he lose what could have been a winnable election against the worst candidate of our lifetimes? Why is he just going head first into absolute craziness on the electoral front? Why does he not care that he might lose Michigan and maybe Georgia too? Why is he taking all this shit for Benjamin Netanyahu, who hates his guts and wants Donald Trump as president? Why is he ignoring people around him in his own party, close people who are telling him, you know what, we probably shouldn't be this close to the Israelis for electoral reasons and for moral and for geopolitical reasons? I don't get it. And people keep asking me, why do you think he's doing what he's doing? And I've asked people around Biden, and different people have different answers, but no one quite gets what is driving this guy right now.
When things don't make sense, you have to start going to the absurd.
Okay.
What seems absurd. Like that's really, like as a comic, the best jokes are when I take the joke to the point that makes sense, and then I take us beyond that. And it makes people open their mind, and they're already open because they're laughing. So then they're like, oh, that's crazy. But when you do that about anything else, it becomes, oh, you're crazy. And sometimes it's not that crazy. A lot of times the most basic answer is really that.
What do you think it is here?
They may have some shit on him that can completely ruin his legacy.
No.
And
really?
Yeah. I mean, all that Epstein stuff and the Mossad possible connection to the Epstein stuff, you don't know. I mean, sometimes it really is that simple. As somebody in Hollywood, I will tell you, I will watch the conspiracy theories that people will come up with online about things, and they're like, no, that was AI. And a lot of times it's just like, no, she didn't like him.
Yes, isn't that
like
simpler?
That
Hold on, man. Isn't that simpler? For me, it's simpler than conspiracy theories or Epstein or whatever it is. It is basically Joe Biden saying,
"Is Joe Biden basic?"
Yeah, I think it's more basic than stuff. Oh no, I think it's more basic stuff which is he just thinks, you know what? This is what I've always done, and this is what I'm going to do now. I've always defended Israel.
Very much be that.
I'm an 82-year-old man who's not going to change who I am right now. Although we had
the only reason I push back on that is because Netanyahu really doesn't like him, and I feel like these are petty white men, and a petty white man would be like, "Oh, you don't like me?
Yeah.
We ain't sending you no guns."
Yeah, all they do is they leak stories to journalists like Barak Ravid of Axios, which says Joe Biden called Benjamin Netanyahu a fucking this or that, or he's called him this. They're always leaking stuff about how pissed Biden is at Netanyahu. But in terms of actually doing stuff, as we've discussed on this show and elsewhere, and as you've discussed on your platforms, nothing's changing in actual action.
Nothing.
The rhetoric is there, but the weapons keep going. Now they're giving them intelligence for this recent hostage rescue that killed hundreds of Palestinians. I just don't get why Joe Biden, and I said this elsewhere, which is it's in his own interests to cut Netanyahu loose.
But it depends on what his interests are.
I think re-election. You're a politician. The number one interest in your world is re-election.
So. He's an 80-something-year-old man.
Oh, you think he wants to? You think he might want to lose?
I just don't think that re-election is his main interest. I think it's either something we don't know.
Why the hell is he running, Amanda? He's 82 years old. Why doesn't he just chill with Jill on the beach in Delaware, eat some ice cream, and hand over to someone else? Why even run again and get all this shit? His son just got found guilty. Like, why is he doing all this?
It is not November 9th yet. I mean, November 5th.
You don't think he'll be on the ballot come November?
I'm just saying, at this point, Mehdi, what the hell?
That's true. Anything is possible. We have a convicted felon running for president of the United States. Let's talk about that matchup. Amanda, while we focus on the craziness of what is going on with Joe Biden, and I do think it's crazy. I think he's behaving in a crazy way for a politician who wants to be reelected. But as you say, maybe he doesn't want to be reelected.
Wait, can we just, before we move on?
Please.
Kamala also hasn't said anything either.
So Kamala, weird on Kamala, I'm going to say something. You did a great thing on your Instagram. I laughed my head off with you and your popcorn. With Kamala getting heckled at the Jimmy Kimmel show, was it?
Yes.
By an audience member going on about genocide. And by the way, that's one of the things I think why they should just wrap up this war, because do they want to spend the next 4 months just getting heckled at every event they go to? It's insane. Why would you want that? But Kamala, interestingly, and people who know Kamala Harris tell me that she, again, this might be bullshit that they leaked to reporters. I'm a member of the media, that she is much better on this issue. And the bar is low, very low bar, but she's better on this issue than Biden. And she would be better on this issue if she were president. I'm sure that's just stuff that people say who want her to be president. But I did notice that when the hostage rescue happened and they killed over 200 Palestinians, the only member of the administration who mentioned dead Palestinians in their initial response was Kamala Harris. Again, very low bar, but I did notice that. And by the way, the KHive, who love Kamala, they hate me. So for me to be saying this...
Too. Oh, they hate me.
They hate you because you're a black woman who doesn't support a black woman?
Yes, and she don't like me neither. So...
Yeah.
I told her straight up. I told him my thoughts straight up. So...
Did you call her a cop? Because they got very upset when I called her a cop in 2020.
I did not call her a carp. I mean, she summoned me when I was in Alabama at the Bloody Sunday commemoration, and we had a very direct conversation. And, I just... and people, I don't know where this narrative of the vice president has no power started, but it is maddening to me. I see it all the time, and then I think about how I used to echo it, and I'm like, you dumb idiot. What? How does the second highest office in the American government...
Meet Dick Cheney. He had no power.
No power. Meet former CIA head George Bush. Yes. Also, no power. Meet Joe Biden, who has been in government for 11 years. No power. Get out of here. What are we talking about?
I mean, you're jumping to VP. I have people, liberals who love Biden, who tell me anytime I say that Biden could do something better on Israel, because Biden's king of the world? Because Biden's prime minister of Israel? I'm like, he's the leader of the free world, and he provides much of the arms. The American president has a lot of power. I've pointed this out before in print on these shows. Ronald Reagan made one phone call to Menachem Begin in 1982 and ended the Israeli bombardment of Beirut. Biden could do that if he wanted to do it. And Kamala Harris could get Biden to do that. She's supposed to be the last voice in the room. We always told she's the last person he checks with.
I also just at a certain point feel like you gotta shake it up. You gotta shake, it can't keep going the way it's going. So I have a theory about Trump.
Oh, I want to hear this. Please tell me it's to do with Epstein and Mossad.
Don't play me. Tell me if you think this is crazy. Fucking bring me on your show and play me. All right.
No, what are you talking about? Trump actually is linked to Epstein. Amanda, Trump actually is linked to Epstein.
I'm making sure that you know that. Okay.
I know about Trump and Epstein. I didn't know about Biden and Epstein.
I'm just saying I don't think we do because...
Good point.
That's my point.
You're the best. Keep going.
I'm very sensitive, Mehdi. So...
Not as sensitive as the KHive, but keep going.
Fair. I have a theory that... And you tell me how crazy this is, because you know more than me about this. I have a theory that Trump is actually trying to bring down AIPAC, or something like that. And that's why these Republican congressmen and senators, or congresspeople and senators, are like so cult following to him, because I've never seen that before with our Congress. Like usually I feel like they act as if like, to me, I feel like in the past, the Congress is very much like the president can't do shit without us. Like that's the vibe. Whereas they're very much like, no, we're tethered to him. And I have a theory. Tell me how crazy this sounds. I have a theory that in 2016, the conversation was had that he would be president. Because I definitely, at this point, feel that our votes they're not the defining factor of the presidency. They're just an influencing factor. And that in 2020, they decided he wouldn't be. And he was like, well, screw you guys, I'm going to take it. And it didn't work out. But I feel like that's why he linked up with Putin, because he felt like that's the only person he could link up with to try to take them down. And I don't think he wants to take them down because he's noble. I think he wants to take them down because he wants to put his own system in place. How crazy does that sound?
When you talk about Trump, nothing is crazy. But
Fair.
I think when it comes to Trump and Israel, my own personal issue is that people, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general, have not been paying as much attention as they perhaps should to what his actual positions are on it. We're so rightly distracted by Joe Biden and the Congress and Netanyahu that you got Trump in the corner ranting and raving about election rigging and the level of pressure in his toilet water. And we don't pay attention to the fact that actually he's way to the right of even Biden on the Israel issue right now.
But can you separate AIPAC from Israel? Is that possible?
Maybe, but let's take another figure. Sheldon Adelson's widow, Miriam Adelson, who now controls the family fortune. Sheldon Adelson was for people who don't know, passed away, one of the most influential pro-Israel billionaires in American history on the Republican side, one of the biggest donors to the Republican Party. His wife, Miriam Adelson, recently was reported that she has said to Trump that I'll give you $100 million. He's asking for her cash. Self-styled billionaire Donald Trump wants her cash. And it's been reported that she'll give him $100 million if he agrees to the annexation of the West Bank as part of his policy platform, that Israel just gets to keep the entire West Bank. So she's basically trying to purchase U.S. foreign policy for $100 million. And with Donald Trump, everything's the same.
Then I'm standing on my theory because AIPAC is in the way of him being able to be the true, like, I run this show situation. So if he can broker deals with people like Miriam Adelson without having to go through...
the problem with that is, aren't we over-focused on AIPAC? There is a pro-Israel lobby, more broadly, people.
So then that's more what I'm talking about, the pro-Israel
there's a pro-Israel lobby, and I think Trump very much is with the pro-Israel lobby for two reasons. One is Christian evangelicals. If you remember some of the interviews he did in office, with Trump,
I remember.
Everything, he's a narcissist freak, right? So everything's all about me. So he's done it.
I'll say whatever I need to say.
Not just that, but he gets pissed when he doesn't get, appreciated. So he did a great interview with Christian Broadcasting Network. And he's like, how come Jews don't respect what I did for them and for Israel? You guys, evangelicals, you know what I've done for Israel. And it's a lot of that kind of bitterness. He said recently outside the courtroom, he said, if any Jew votes for Biden, they should have their head, they're not a real Jew, they're a traitor to their religion. Basically, hardcore anti-Semitic stuff telling Jews that. But Trump, I think it's, again, as you say, it's always about him. So that's number one. But, he's got people like Jared Kushner on his team, his son-in-law, who ran Middle East policy last time, will run Middle East policy again, happy to go take lots of awards from AIPAC. You got one from ADL the other day. Benjamin Netanyahu slept in Kushner's bed when Kushner was a teenager. That's how close their families are. So I don't know about the AIPAC thing. I know Trump, does like to, cut people down to size, including lobby groups. I get that. But on Israel itself, which is what I'm more concerned about, I do think people are missing the wood from the trees or the forest from the trees or whatever the phrase is. I mean, Americans have different phrases. He is going to be super, super pro-Israel. Now, you can say that's because of AIPAC or Miriam Adelson or Jared Kushner or Trump's own anti-Arab racism, but he's going to be super pro-Israel. He was super pro-Israel. Until Biden came along, he was the most pro-Israeli president of our lifetimes. He's the only American president in history to have an illegal settlement named after him in the Golan Heights. There's literally a settlement named after Trump.
The reason I bring this up is because at the end of the day, there is puppeteering that happens in order to determine who is going to be the president. We know that. That's not just like some tinfoil theory.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear for people listening, for the bad faith actors watching, I agree with you, but when we talk about puppeteers, we're not talking about Jewish puppeteers. We're talking about the powers that be in this country.
The powers that be in this country.
I think that's 100% true. Yes. 100%. I don't think anyone disputes that the military-industrial complex, that Wall Street, that Hollywood, that the gun lobby. We've had, what's fascinating to me is there's many, many lobby groups that have a lot of problems.
Yes, I was talking about this earlier today. It's not just the Israel lobby. It's the NRA, it's the Big Pharma.
Yes, Big Pharma. We don't talk enough about Big Pharma.
It's the oil lobby, right? So,
and by the way, Trump has offered the oil lobby. He said, give me $1 billion and I will pass every law you want. This is what Trump did recently. Naomi Klein and I talked about this just recently on Unshot. So yes, please carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, so I say that to say, though, that I feel like a lot of conversations are being had about like the Trump and Biden matchup without talking about the lobbies and how they end up being, to me, the very integral part of who is going to end up being the president and who is more, it's like part of it is, well, who controls the populace? So that's what we vote for, so that, they can be like, okay, well, who's going to control the populace? Well, who seems to have the most control? But then the other part is who's going to do the most for these lobbies? And that to me is not talked about enough at all. Like, I mean, it's very inside baseball when in actuality, to me, it is the game. It's not.
And that's why we're distracted with this bullshit, trivial stuff that we're told to focus on. And look, Naomi and I did a whole episode the other day about the oil lobby and the role that's playing in the Trump agenda, both his policy agenda and in terms of his just corrupt campaigning. It's really, really bothers me that we don't talk about this stuff. We don't talk about the healthcare industry. We don't talk about big pharma. We don't talk about the role of all these people with power and money. Going back.
Bingo.
Going back to what we just said, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, just the other day, just to bring back a Seinfeld reference, she was asked about political correctness in comedy, which all these white men comedians are really upset about. And she said, I don't think political correctness in comedy is a problem, or in America is a problem. I think the consolidation of power and money is a problem. I was like, yes.
There you go.
And that is what we don't talk about enough, and that is what our media, all roads lead back to the media, Amanda, unfortunately, which is, talk about controlling the populace. That is the problem. We have a media here that just doesn't cover the issues that need to be covered. And when it does cover them...
It was never supposed to. It was never supposed to. I mean, when you read, manufacturing consent, you're just like, oh, no.
Shout out to Noam Chomsky, who's not doing so well right now. And we send our positive thoughts and prayers Noam's way.
I mean, listen, the most cynical but also not that crazy way of looking at the media is that when it comes to like the news, they're basically like sentinels of disinformation that are just placed all across the world to dispatch all across the nation to dispatch whatever needs to be dispatched. And when you see on TikTok, they do this thing all the time where they'll line up all these news reports from all these different cities, and they're all saying the exact same thing because they're all getting their information from the same place. It's not journalism. It's just repeatism.
In the case of local news, Sinclair, which is a right-wing media conglomerate which owns a lot of local news stations, there was a moment, I think a couple of years ago, where they literally sent out a script and someone did cut it together where they're all saying word for word the same thing because it was sent from it was Sinclair Media, which is a right-wing media group akin to Fox.
Somebody who was actually, I was on a daytime talk show where we weren't even allowed to say Trump's name.
Wow.
Like we were literally not allowed to say his name. Whenever we were referring to any story that was about, something he did, we would have to say the president, but we couldn't say his name. I mean, we couldn't have guests, we couldn't have discourse or anything that was even remotely challenging. It had to be purely...
and that's the liberal media that you're in there. The liberal media saying, don't rock the boat on Trump.
Well, because, we were supposed to be a show that speaks to BIPOC women, but because we were on Fox, it was that this is the framework.
So we're almost out of time, but you've raised such a good topic here that
quickly?
I've got.
Oh my gosh!
I know, but let me ask you this, and I'm asking myself this question. I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners are wondering this: if the media has so many issues, and by the way, I'm probably not as negative on the media as you are, in the sense that I do think they're sentinels of disinformation in many cases, but in other cases, they actually do lots of good work. The issue becomes, as you say, who is manufacturing the consent at the top? Who's doing the editing? For example, the New York Times recently ran a brilliantly reported piece about this Israeli prison at this military base. I'm sure you saw it, about Palestinian prisoners being raped with metal rods, being cuffed, being amputated. But a lot of that was buried at the end of the piece. So you have to think to yourself, the reporter did the reporting. But when the report came in, someone decided to frame it in a way where that gets buried. It should have been the lead. It should be in the opening paragraph. Yes. We have exclusive reporting that the Israelis are raping Palestinian detainees. Instead, it was buried at the end of this epic piece. So that's where I kind of, that's where I stand on media stuff. But just on you and me, why are we in this business then? Why are we in this industry? Why don't we just chuck it all in and go do something else?
Well, I have no interest in being a nurse.
Or a doctor. We were going to call this show, we should have been doctors. Anyone who's watched this already, we were going to call this show, we should have been doctors.
Because that's really a question I've asked myself many a times. But I think the reality is that, people like us we do see the need for people like us in these spaces, but we understand that we can't remain in those spaces because we're not reformists. And that's really what boils down to. We become revolutionary in how we are going to continue to do what we were sent here to do. And so many of us just don't feel, for whatever reason, like they can do it, but it's imperative. We do need truth tellers. We do need, actually, we need truth translators. That is a real need. Media is a generic word, but there is a lot of space for that, and we need it. That's why they want to shut down TikTok. It became an independent media space for truth translating. So I think we stay in this because we know what we're supposed to do, but we have changed where the this exists. And that's why I encourage you to, believe in the mission of Zeteo. And that's why for myself, I encourage myself to believe in my own mission. I tell everybody these days, I'm divesting from celebrity. I'm good. I'm divesting from celebrity. I don't even want to be called a comic. Call me an artistic intellectual. I use comedy to edutain. That's where I'm at with it. Because I don't even want the limitations that were created in spaces that I don't even exist in anymore. I'm not interested in succeeding in those spaces. If I, venture into it by nature of just doing what I'm doing, then so be it. But I don't aspire the same way I used to. My ambition isn't the same, and I'm pretty sure yours isn't either.
Well, I've never been asked out on a date by Drake, so it's easier for me to divest from celebrity, I'll be honest with you. And next time I see Tom Cruise on the street, I will tell him, I love your movies. Amanda says you're lovely, but I can't talk to you because I'm divesting from celebrity, and I love that line.
That's correct.
That's got to be the title of your next book, surely. Divesting from Celebrity.
Actually, my next book is titled Body Waving Through the BS, and it is Simon & Schuster next fall, so look out for it.
I love it. Okay, before we finish, I got to ask you this. You're going on tour, aren't you? You're on tour or going on tour?
I am on tour right now.
Tell us where can people catch you?
People can catch me. I will be in Detroit on June 21st and 22nd. I'll be in Philly. I'll be in DC, New York. Go to amandaseales.com and get your tickets. The Unlikable stand-up comedy tour is coming to a city near you. And we're adding dates. So even if you don't see your city there, sign up for the newsletter so that you don't miss out when we announce.
What a lie that title is. Unlikable? How can anyone who spent the last 40 minutes with you dare say such a thing? Amanda, next time we're going to have to do... Go on.
So speaking of media, I have a syndicated radio show, The Amanda Seales Show, where a lot of people are like, you don't talk about XYZ. Well, I didn't talk about it on Instagram. I talk about it on the show that I do every day that you can get wherever you get your podcasts, along with my other podcast, Small Doses.
But come on, Amanda, don't you love it when people say, why haven't you covered that after you've just covered it on one of the multiple platforms?
Yes.
I get that all the time. And why haven't you done this? I did it yesterday and the day before.
I did it over there.
Did you read my op-ed?
Yep.
Did you go over there? And then they say, well, I can't watch everything you do. So, okay,
well,
then don't make us
your
sweet.
Problem,
I know. Oh, we could have a whole separate episode where we rant about feedback. No, I love the people. We love the Zeteo subscribers for sure. And I hope people are subscribing to this as they listen to We're Not Kidding. But that is our show today. I'm Mehdi Hasan.
I'm Amanda Seales.
And we are not kidding. Coming up next will be Mr. Bassem Youssef will be back for the next episode of We're Not Kidding.
Ooh.
But we are going to get Amanda back for a future show. There's no doubt in my mind. And maybe we'll talk more about Jeffrey Epstein. Because I've never really talked about Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh my gosh! Remind me.
You think I'm genuine? I've never really talked to. I've saw the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and it's just one of the things where I can't. I just don't have the bandwidth, to quote the LA folks, to cover everything. So I'm like,
I hear you.
On the one hand, it sounds super shady what went down. On the other hand, I got to focus right here on Gaza /Biden / whatever else is going on in the world.
I'm telling you.
We will talk extensively on many topics, but this was great. Appreciate having you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Enjoy LA.
Yes, sir.
I'm your host, Mehdi Hasan, and today's co-host was Amanda Seales. Our executive producers are Misha Youssef and Kieran Alvey. Our producer and editor is Frank Capello. Our music was composed by Andy Clausen. Our design is by Alicia Tatone, and the title card animation is by Hasan Mezgali.